I sat on the cold bathroom floor, staring at the 2 pink lines that were about to destroy my entire life. And the only thing I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears like a roaring waterfall. My hands were trembling so violently that I almost dropped the small plastic test, but I couldn't look away from it. Positive. There was no mistake, no ambiguity, and no way to misinterpret the result. I was pregnant. For most women, this moment might be a celebration, a time of tears and joy. But for me, it was a death sentence for my marriage. My husband, Mark, had a vasectomy 3 years ago. We had made the decision together, sitting in our living room with calm certainty, deciding that our family was complete with just the 2 of us and our careers. He had gone to the follow-up appointments. He was sterile. There was absolutely 0 chance that this baby belonged to him, which meant that the secret I had buried deep in the darkest corner of my heart was about to be brought into the blinding light. I stood up, my legs feeling weak and unstable, and walked over to the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked the same as she did yesterday. Same dark hair, same pale skin, same tired eyes, but everything had changed. I placed a hand on my flat stomach. Inside, cells were dividing. A life was forming. And with every passing second, the evidence of my betrayal was growing. I had told myself that the affair was just a momentary lapse in judgment, a fleeting mistake born out of loneliness and a moment of weakness. I had convinced myself that I could end it, bury it, and return to being the good wife that Mark believed I was. I thought I had gotten away with it. But now, holding this test, I realized that secrets have a way of surfacing, usually when you least expect them. Suddenly, I heard the front door open downstairs. The sound of keys jingling, and the heavy thud of a gym bag hitting the floor echoed through the silent house. "Olivia, are you home?" Mark's voice drifted up the stairs, cheerful and warm. It was the voice of a man who trusted his wife, a man who was looking forward to a quiet evening at home. Panic seized my chest. I quickly wrapped the pregnancy test in a wad of toilet paper, then buried it deep at the bottom of the bathroom trash can. Underneath, used cotton pads and tissues. I flushed the toilet, washed my face with cold water to hide the redness in my cheeks, and took a deep breath. I had to go downstairs. I had to act normal. But how do you act normal when you are carrying a bomb that is ticking down to the destruction of your world? "I'm up here, Mark." "Just washing my face," I called out, my voice sounding strangely high-pitched to my own ears. I waited a moment, composing myself, and then walked down the stairs. Mark was in the kitchen, pouring a glass of water. He looked up and smiled as I entered. He was wearing his running clothes, his face flushed from exercise, looking healthy and content. He looked like the man I had fallen in love with 10 years ago, kind, reliable, and safe. "Hey," he said, walking over to kiss me on the forehead. "You look a little pale. Are you feeling okay? I forced a smile, though my stomach churned with nausea, partly from the pregnancy, partly from the guilt. I'm fine, I lied. Just a bit of a headache. I think I stared at the computer screen for too long at work today. You work too hard, he said, rubbing my shoulder gently. Why don't you go sit on the couch? I'll make dinner tonight. How does pasta sound? That sounds wonderful, I said, though the thought of food made me want to retch. I walked into the living room and sat down on the edge of the sofa. The room felt different now. The comfortable furniture, the photos of us on our wedding day on the mantel, the soft rug under my feet, it all felt like a set for a play that was about to be canceled. I looked at a photo of us from last summer. We were on a boat, laughing, the wind in our hair. We looked so happy. But looking back now, I could see the cracks that I had ignored. Our marriage hadn't been terrible. It wasn't full of arguments or abuse. It was just quiet. Over the last 2 years, Mark had become obsessed with his career. He was an architect, and he had been working on a massive project that consumed all his mental energy. He would come home late, eat quickly, and go to his study. We stopped talking about our feelings. We only talked about schedules, bills, and household maintenance. I started to feel like a roommate rather than a wife. I felt invisible. And then I met Julian. Julian was a client at the marketing firm where I worked. He was charismatic, attentive, and he looked at me in a way that Mark hadn't looked at me in years. He listened when I spoke. He noticed when I changed my perfume. It started with innocent coffees after meetings, then turned into long lunches, and then, one rainy afternoon, it crossed the line. The affair lasted only 2 months. I ended it 3 weeks ago because the guilt was eating me alive. I told Julian that I loved my husband and that I wanted to fix my marriage. Julian had been hurt, but he respected my decision. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I could simply return to Mark, put in the effort, and repair the distance between us without ever telling him what I had done. I was so naive. Dinner is almost ready. Mark shouted from the kitchen, snapping me out of my memories. I took a deep breath and walked into the dining room. As I sat down, the smell of the tomato sauce hit me, and my stomach lurched violently. I clamped a hand over my mouth and ran to the downstairs bathroom, barely making it in time before I was sick. I knelt on the floor, gasping for air, tears streaming down my face. This was it. The physical reality was undeniable. There was a gentle knock on the door. "Olivia, honey, are you okay?" Mark's voice was filled with genuine concern. I wiped my mouth and flushed the toilet. I think I just have a stomach bug," I managed to say through the closed door. "Maybe something I ate at lunch. Do you want me to get you some medicine? Or maybe some ginger ale?" "No, I just need a minute," I said. "Please, just go eat. I'll be out in a second." I heard his footsteps retreat slightly, but I knew he was hovering nearby. I looked at my reflection again. How long could I hide this? A few weeks, maybe a month. But eventually, my body would change. And even if I could hide the bump for a while, I couldn't hide a baby. The terrifying thought of termination crossed my mind, but it vanished as quickly as it came. I knew, deep in my soul, that I couldn't do that. Despite the circumstances, despite the chaos this child would bring, the instinct to protect it was already flickering to life within me. But keeping the baby meant losing Mark. There was no middle ground. I eventually emerged from the bathroom. Mark was standing in the hallway, his arms crossed, a frown on his face. "You really don't look well, Olivia," he said, stepping closer and placing the back of his hand against my forehead to check for a fever. "You don't feel hot, but you're shaking." "I'm just cold," I whispered, wrapping my arms around myself. "I think I'm just going to go to bed, Mark. I'm sorry about dinner." "Don't apologize," he said softly. "I'll clean up. You go rest." I went upstairs, changed into my pajamas, and crawled into bed. I lay there in the dark, listening to the sounds of the house. I heard Mark washing the dishes, the clatter of plates, the hum of the refrigerator. These were the sounds of a domestic life that I had taken for granted, a life that I had jeopardized for a few moments of passion. The next morning, the sun was shining brightly, which felt like a cruel joke. I woke up before the alarm, my mind immediately racing. I had to go to work. I had to pretend everything was normal. Mark was already in the kitchen when I went down. He had made coffee and toast. "Feeling any better?" he asked, looking up from his tablet. "A little," I lied, taking a sip of water instead of the coffee he offered. "I'm still a bit queasy. Maybe you should see a doctor," he suggested. "It could be food poisoning, or maybe a virus is going around." "I'll be fine," I said quickly. "If it doesn't get better in a few days, I'll go." "Okay," he said, though he still looked doubtful. By the way, I was looking at the calendar. Our anniversary is coming up next month. I was thinking we could book that cabin up at the lake, the one we went to 5 years ago. It would be nice to disconnect for a weekend. My heart broke. He was trying. He was making an effort to reconnect, to be the husband I had wanted him to be. And here I was, carrying another man's child. "That sounds nice," I stammered. "Let me check my work schedule." "Great," he smiled. "I'm really looking forward to it." I left the house in a daze. I drove to work, but I couldn't focus on anything. I sat at my desk, staring at spreadsheets, but the numbers blurred together. Around 11:00 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Julian. "Julian, just checking in. I know we said no contact, but I wanted to make sure you're okay. I miss our talks." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the delete button. A wave of anger washed over me. It wasn't his fault. He didn't know I was pregnant, but seeing his name made me feel sick. I deleted the message without replying and blocked his number. I couldn't deal with him right now. I had to deal with the reality of my marriage. At lunch, I didn't eat. Instead, I drove to a park nearby and sat in my car. I needed to think. I needed a plan. Option 1, I tell Mark the truth immediately. Result, he leaves me. He might kick me out. The divorce will be messy. He will be devastated. Option 2, I try to hide it and run away. Result, ridiculous. I have a job, a life, a mortgage. I can't just disappear. Option 3, I tell him I'm pregnant, but lie about how it happened. Result, impossible. He knows he's sterile. Unless I tried to convince him the vasectomy failed. I Googled it on my phone. Vasectomy failure rate. It was rare, incredibly rare, especially after 3 years, and a clear sperm count test. If I tried to tell him it was a medical miracle, he would demand a paternity test. And when that test came back, the lie would be exposed, and I would look even worse for trying to deceive him. No, there was no way to lie my way out of this. The truth was the only path, even if the path led off a cliff. Days turned into weeks. The morning sickness became a routine struggle. I became an expert at silent vomiting. I carried mints everywhere. I wore baggy sweaters to hide a stomach that hadn't even grown yet, just out of paranoia. Mark noticed my distance. One evening, about 3 weeks after the test, we were sitting in the living room. It was raining outside, a steady rhythm against the window. "Olivia," Mark said, turning off the TV. "We need to talk." My heart stopped. "About what?" "About us," he said, turning to face me. "You've been different lately. You're distant. You're jumpy. You look exhausted all the time, and you're barely eating. Is there something going on at work? Is there something wrong with your health?" I looked at his hands. They were strong, capable hands. Hands that had built this house. Hands that had held me when my mother died. I realized I couldn't keep doing this to him. The cruelty of the lie was worse than the cruelty of the truth. He deserved to know. He deserved to make his own choice about his future. "It's not work," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Then what is it?" He moved closer on the sofa, reaching out to take my hand. "You know you can tell me anything, right? Whatever it is, we can fix it. Is it money? Are you unhappy?" Tears welled up in my eyes, spilling over before I could stop them. "Mark, I don't think we can fix this." He froze. His face went pale. "What do you mean? Do you want a divorce? Is that it?" "No," I sobbed. "I don't want a divorce. I love you. But I've done something terrible." Mark let go of my hand. He sat back, his expression shifting from concern to confusion, and then to a slow, dawning dread. He stayed silent, waiting. I took a breath that felt like inhaling broken glass. "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was absolute. It was heavy and suffocating. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. Tick, tick, tick. Mark stared at me. He blinked once, then twice. "Pregnant," he repeated, the words sounding foreign in his mouth. "Yes," I whispered. He shook his head slightly, a nervous chuckle escaping his lips. "But, Olivia, that's impossible. You know that. I had the vasectomy. Dr. Henderson confirmed it. There's no way." I didn't say anything. I just looked at him, tears streaming down my face. He looked at my weeping face, and I saw the moment the realization hit him. It was like watching a light go out in someone's eyes. His confusion melted away, replaced by a look of sheer, agonizing comprehension. "No," he whispered. "No, Olivia. I'm so sorry," I choked out. "I'm so sorry." "You're pregnant," he said, his voice rising, becoming harder. "And I can't have children, so—" He stood up abruptly, pacing away from me as if being near me was physically painful. "So it's not mine. Mark, please." "Who?" he demanded, spinning around to face me. His face was twisted in a mixture of rage and heartbreak. "Who is it?" "It doesn't matter," I said. "It's over. It was a mistake. It meant nothing." "It meant nothing," he laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You're pregnant with another man's child, Olivia. That doesn't mean nothing. That means everything." He ran his hands through his hair, pacing the length of the room. "How long?" he asked. "How long were you seeing him?" 2 months, I admitted. "But it's over. I ended it weeks ago. I wanted to fix us. I wanted to come back to you. You wanted to come back to me." He looked at me with disgust. "And when were you going to tell me? Or were you going to try to pass it off as a miracle? Were you going to let me raise another man's child and think it was mine?" "No," I cried. "I was never going to do that. I knew I had to tell you. I was scared, Mark. I was terrified of losing you." "You have lost me," he shouted. The volume of his voice made me flinch. He had never raised his voice at me like that before. "You lost me the moment you let someone else touch you. You lost me the moment you decided our vows didn't matter." He walked to the window and stared out at the rain. His shoulders were shaking. I wanted to go to him, to touch his back, to comfort him. But I knew I had lost the right to do that. I sat on the sofa, feeling smaller than I had ever felt in my life. "Why?" he asked, without turning around. His voice was quieter now, broken. Was I not enough? Was I too busy? Did I do something wrong? This was the question I had dreaded most. "No, Mark, you didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't about you. It was me. I felt lonely. I felt like we were drifting apart, and instead of talking to you about it, instead of fighting for us, I looked for an easy escape. It was selfish. It was weak. And I regretted every single second of every day." He turned around. His eyes were red. "I thought we were happy. I was working so hard for us, for our future. And you were." He couldn't even finish the sentence. "I know," I whispered. "I can't be here," he said suddenly. "I can't be in this room with you right now." He walked past me, grabbing his keys from the table. "Mark, where are you going?" I asked, panic rising again. "Please don't drive, you're upset." I'm not going to drive off a bridge, Olivia, he snapped. I'm going to a hotel. I need space. I need to think. He opened the front door. The wind and rain blew in, chilling the hallway. Mark, he looked back at me one last time. There was no love in his eyes, only a profound sadness. Don't contact me, he said. I'll call you when I'm ready. And then he was gone. The door slammed shut, and the house fell into a silence deeper and darker than before. The next 3 days were a blur of misery. I took sick leave from work. I barely ate. I slept on the sofa because the bed felt too big and empty without him. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a text, a call, anything. But the screen remained dark. I had plenty of time to think. I thought about the baby growing inside me. Despite the chaos, I found myself instinctively placing a hand on my stomach. This innocent life wasn't to blame for my mistakes. It didn't ask to be created in a storm of betrayal. It deserved to be loved, even if its mother was a mess. On the 4th day, I decided I needed to take action. I couldn't just sit and rot. I cleaned the house from top to bottom. I went grocery shopping. I forced myself to eat a proper meal. I had to be strong, not just for myself, but for the child. That evening, the doorbell rang. My heart leaped into my throat. I ran to the door and opened it. It wasn't Mark. It was his sister, Sarah. Sarah and I had always been close. She was my best friend. But looking at her face now stern, unsmiling, I knew Mark had told her everything. Sarah, I said, stepping back to let her in. She walked in and didn't take off her coat. She stood in the hallway, looking at me with a mixture of pity and disappointment. Mark sent me, she said. How is he? I asked, my voice trembling. Is he okay? No, Olivia. He's not okay. He's devastated. He's staying at my place. I nodded, looking down at the floor. I know I hurt him. He asked me to come get some of his things, Sarah said. He needs clothes for work. And his laptop. He's not coming back. The question came out as a whisper. Sarah sighed. Her expression softened just a fraction. I don't know, Olivia. He's really hurt. You have to understand, for a man, this is the ultimate betrayal. Not just the affair, but the pregnancy. It's a permanent reminder of what happened. I know, I said again. Tears were streaming down my face. I want him to know that I love him. I made a mistake, but I love him. I'll tell him, Sarah said. But honestly, I think you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that this is over. She went upstairs. I heard her moving around in our bedroom, opening drawers, packing a bag. Every sound was like a nail in the coffin of my marriage. When she came back down, she had a large duffel bag over her shoulder. Take care of yourself, Olivia, she said. Regardless of what happens between you and Mark, you have a baby to think about now. Thank you, Sarah, I said. After she left, the reality of my situation truly settled in. I was alone. I was pregnant. and I had destroyed the best thing that had ever happened to me. Another week passed. I returned to work. It was hard to focus, but the routine helped keep me sane. I ignored the whispers of my colleagues, who noticed I looked tired. I went to my first prenatal appointment alone. Seeing the tiny heartbeat on the ultrasound monitor was a bittersweet moment. It was a miracle, undeniable and beautiful, but it was also the source of my greatest pain. The doctor asked about the father's medical history. I had to lie and say I didn't have it yet. Then, on a Tuesday evening, exactly 2 weeks after he left, the front door opened. I was in the kitchen making tea. I froze. Mark walked in. He looked tired. He had lost weight. He hadn't shaved in a few days. He placed his keys on the counter and looked at me. "Mark," I breathed. "I'm not moving back in," he said immediately, his voice flat. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. I don't know." "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I understand." But he continued, leaning against the doorframe. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I've been angry. I've been sad. I've hated you." I flinched at the word, but I took it. I deserved it. "But," he said, taking a deep breath, "I also realized that I miss you. And that makes me angry too. Because I shouldn't miss you after what you did." "I miss you too," I said. "We have a lot to figure out," Mark said. "I spoke to a lawyer." My heart sank. "Oh, just to know my options," he said. "But I haven't filed anything." I told him to wait. He walked into the kitchen and poured himself a glass of water, standing a few feet away from me. The distance felt like miles. "What are you going to do about the baby?" he asked. He didn't look at me. He looked at his glass. "I'm keeping it," I said firmly. I can't not keep it, Mark. It's a life. It's my responsibility." He nodded slowly. "I figured you would say that. You've always had a good heart, even if you made a terrible choice." He turned to look at me. "I don't know if I can be a father to another man's child, Olivia. I don't know if I have that in me. Every time I look at the baby, I might see him. I might see the affair." "I understand," I said. "I would never force that on you. If you want to leave, I won't fight you for the house or anything. I'll make it easy." "I don't want easy," he snapped, his voice cracking. "I want my wife back. I want the life we had before you blew it up." He took a jagged breath. "But we can't go back. We can only go forward." He put the glass down. "I'm going to go back to Sarah's tonight. But I think we should try counseling. Marriage counseling. I'm not promising anything. I'm not promising forgiveness. But I'm willing to sit in a room and talk. I'm willing to see if there is anything left of us worth saving." Hope, fragile and small, sparked in my chest. "I would like that. I would do anything, Mark, anything." "Don't promise anything yet," he said. "It's going to be hell. You know that, right? Even if we stay together, this isn't going to go away. You're going to get bigger. The baby will be born. It's going to be in our faces every day." "I know," I said. "I'm ready to do the work. I'm ready to handle the consequences." He looked at me for a long moment, his eyes searching my face for something, maybe the woman he used to trust. "We start on Thursday," he said. "I made an appointment. Dr. Evans, 5:00 p.m. "I'll be there," I said. He turned to leave. At the door, he paused. Did you tell him? The other guy?" "No," I said. "I blocked him. He doesn't know." "He has a right to know," Mark said, surprisingly. "Legally and morally. He's the father. If we are going to do this, Olivia, we have to do it with zero secrets. You have to tell him. You have to deal with that mess so it doesn't come back to haunt us later." I realized he was right. I couldn't build a new foundation on old secrets. "I will," I promised. "Good night, Olivia," Mark said. "Good night, Mark." He left, and the house was quiet again. But this time, the silence wasn't empty. It was filled with a terrifying, difficult, but undeniable possibility of a future. I sat down on the sofa and placed my hand on my stomach again. The road ahead was going to be incredibly steep. I had to face Julian. I had to face the judgment of my family and friends when the truth eventually came out. I had to rebuild my husband's trust brick by agonizing brick, knowing he might knock it down at any moment. But as I sat there, I realized something important. For a long time, I had been living a life of avoidance, avoiding conflict in my marriage, avoiding my own unhappiness, avoiding the reality of my choices. That ended today. I was done hiding. I picked up my phone and unblocked Julian's number. I began to type a message. It was time to own my story, the good and the ugly parts. It was time to grow up. "Julian, we need to meet. There is something you need to know." I pressed send. My hands were shaking, but for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel sick. I felt ready. The storm was here, but I was no longer running from it. I was going to stand in the rain and face whatever came next.